Feel my needs.
You didn't just say for my clip.
Oh, gosh.
Have you got like a little agenda?
Rough. Very rough. Cool. Do you want me to search out? So?
No.
I mean, it's going to be pretty flowy anyway.
Yeah.
I've just got some like questions if we get a bit stagnant. I've kept this. Hello.
That does really push them out.
Well, actually, one of them, this one was turned up loads, which was, I was playing around with it last episode. I was like, that's so fucking loud. I was really loud, just for me.
Oh, really? Yeah, this is right.
Yes, I cracked it.
Airplane mode.
Yes, it's already on.
Nice.
Turn around. Do a quick test. It's very unnatural. Hello. I'm not testing it. Hello. Testing.
Testing.
Okay. Ready to go?
Ready.
Welcome back to the Live, Perform, Compete podcast. You are joined by me and Ed. Welcome.
Hi, Paddy.
I was
I was going to say welcome as well.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Hi, Paddy. Good to be here.
We had a week of, we kind of broke up the podcast schedule a little bit, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
And Ed Carlos, interesting chat. I still haven't listened to it yet, but I saw the snippets and it looked good. So
Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah, I mean, for those who are listening, who've listened to it, hopefully they found it interesting. But I think it was like it was a very raw recording because Carlos is someone who is going through the early stages of just figuring things out. He only started this journey when we started working together as coach and athlete. My very first question to him was, why do you want to get to the CrossFit Games? And that was a question he was stuck on for pretty much the majority of the hour that we spoke the very first time. And it's still a question that he still can't quite answer with full confidence and clarity. And that one question in itself has just unlocked all this exploration and these other aspects of his life that he hadn't previously delved into and tried to explore. And I've just kind of, I guess, pushed him to start exploring and to not be afraid and to just so much stuff. It's actually been such an amazing journey I've had with him. Really funny because he came to me as a coach wanting just to write him training programs to make him a better athlete, but all of the development that he's experienced so far that we've experienced together has been about being on the emotional, mental side of things.
Life coaching.
It kind of actually has indirectly been life coaching. I didn't think that's where we would go, but at the same time that he's in a really tough spot right now where he's just starting to realize, at 33 years old, I think he is now, there's a lot of letting go of the past and questioning of the past. Why was I like that? Why did I do that? Why did I behave like this? Why did I think like that? And kind of also at the same time unboxing this new Carlos, or kind of uncovering this Carlos has been shaded and masked by trying to please other people, trying to fit expectations of others, trying to be someone he probably wasn't. So just a really interesting journey, and I love having these conversations with people because I've been through the journey myself.
Yeah.
I know you're going through your journey as well.
I
should say, I'm going through the journey still. Just kind of got a bit of a head start on it because I kind of stumbled across this stuff kind of 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
It was just cool. It was cool because in the conversation, he was figuring shit out as he was talking, as is the way that every time me and Carlos talk, we have these conversations, and as he's speaking, he's realizing, that's another thing. That's why I think it's quite cool.
I think that's what we all do. I know you and I have chats on here and off of here, and we kind of just by speaking out loud and not you haven't planned what you're saying in that conversation, you're just thinking out loud, and by thinking out loud you happen to stumble on, oh, maybe that's a good point, actually I haven't thought about this.
And it's kind of like, speaking to someone is often, kind of the same thing as journaling in a way. It's like being able to just express your thoughts. And for some people who are unfortunately don't have other people they can have these conversations with, perhaps you're on your own journey, but your friends aren't on that same journey with you, or you don't have people in your work environment like you do that are on that same journey as well. And you just end up spending a lot of time with your own thoughts, and that's where something like journaling can be really beneficial, because at least you're putting your thoughts out, almost having a conversation with yourself, and realizing in that journaling process, that's where you're having your realizations and your epiphany and your awareness building.
Just going back off that, essentially what you're doing with Carlos is just constantly pressing the why. And I think that obviously it's the same with any athlete or like casual gym goer. You ask them why, and you would get kind of like a buzzword answer, or you would get an answer that doesn't really you can see or hear that it's just superficial. But I think that's the case for most athletes, like professional athletes. Like, I mean, we talk about Ant on here a lot. I mean, Ant talks about his why, but I would argue with him if he was sitting here now on the podcast. I'd be like, what really, what is your why? I'm not sure he has really gone into that much detail into what is really driving his why. And I think that really his consistency as a training is through habit, and that difference between motivation and discipline. And he's very disciplined in his routines. He likes a routine, and I think he's just cultivated that discipline, that motivation and that drive to do it is purely out of habit, not necessarily because the fire is lit underneath him. And I think that's actually what separates a lot of athletes is, like, for example, Andre, that you've had on this podcast a couple of times, his why is very clear cut with, he made a promise to his brother, and this is something, that's something that emotional that will drive you constantly on an hourly, daily basis. And think about the way that you hear Matt Fraser speak about not so much about his why, but his kind of like determination and kind of aggression towards everyone else.
He's interesting because his why was, from the many interviews I've heard him say it when he's been asked it, was financial. It was like to earn money to build a life for me after CrossFit.
At the start.
But I mean, even still.
I think so.
Even still towards the end. And I remember when he went on Joe Rogan in his final swan song, and the question was asked, might not be Joe Rogan, but the question was asked, what would it take to get you to do another year? And he basically said, a serious paycheck.
I think it was Joe Rogan.
And I would probably consider doing it again. Which I thought was quite interesting in the context of this conversation, where he basically said, I'm quitting now not because of the money, but I'm quitting because it's just time for me to prioritise other things like starting a family and being there for his missus. And then he went and said, actually, if they put a big prize purse on the table, I'd still do it. And I thought, well, that was interesting. There's someone who maybe he's just doing it because he's under pressure on an interview, but there was conflict in what he'd initially said was originally stop competing to what he's saying is actually why he's not competing. The money wasn't worth the reward, essentially. And it's funny, the question is something I ask all of not just my athletes that I work with who are chasing, high level sporting performance, but constantly checking and asking that question, like, why do you want this goal? And for someone like Ant, at the start of every season, before we start, getting into pre-season and in-season training, I will ask the question and I'll say it as if I'm a complete stranger. I did it the last 2 years. I just messaged him out of the blue and say, hey man, just wanted to know, why do you want to get to CrossFit Games? And I've just put it as blankly as that.
10 o'clock on a Sunday morning or something.
Exactly. And then, it's always funny because it's like, you see Ant Hings is typing, it's not typing, it's typing, it's not typing. So I can see the cogs are turning. But over the years, and myself and Ant have been working together quite a while now, and the answer is always evolving a little bit. But you're right, it is a really hard question. And I actually have received quite a few messages from people listening to Carlos's episode who said that when I was asking the questions to Carlos, they were asking themselves the same question, not just with their training, but with their careers, their professions. really hard.
Yeah.
Found it really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. I was going to go on something and I can't remember what it was. Never mind. We'll move on to the topic of what we would like to discuss today. And if I have a slight epiphany, maybe we'll come back. Yeah. So basically what we wanted to talk about is the time off that you had last week. So most of you listening probably don't know this, but Ed took 5 days off, 6 days off.
I took Tuesday
to
Saturday off. So came back in on Monday.
5 days.
5 days, yeah.
Maths. Yeah, 5 days. Tuesday, Wednesday,
Technically
Thursday,
6 days and no work, and Sunday I guess was also the day of rest.
You're going to have that anyway. Yeah. And basically we're going to talk about the agenda for today is talk about why you did it, benefits, physically, mentally, recommendations to other people, etc. So talk to me about how, because obviously it was your birthday, so that was essentially why you were having the time off. Yeah. Why did you feel, not necessarily that you needed it, why did you want to take 5 days off in a row?
Okay, so I think, actually funnily enough, the reason I decided to take any days off was because I think 2 months ago I made an announcement in team meeting and I said that where there's a change of policy on your birthday week, you're going to get an extra day of leave. Do you remember that? You might have been in hospital actually with your wrist.
I didn't get
but I made the call to say that on your birthday week you're going to get an extra day of leave that doesn't contribute towards your annual working leave.
Nice.
That's actually the company policy I kind of just thought of a few months ago. And I thought, shit, it's my birthday week. I should really lead by example here and actually take that day of leave. Yeah. And so initially I said, right, I'll just take Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off. Take 3 days, I'll come back in and work on Saturday and get back to it. And honestly, it wasn't because I felt like I needed it. It was that, I've set this the standard for the company. Sometimes I do actually feel like I should lead by example. And if I'm going to say something and encourage the rest of the team to take a day off, I should be taking a day off as well. And I know it sounds silly when I say it, because it's kind of like I wasn't really taking a break for the right reasons. Anyway, so I said Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Liam had just taken, one of our other colleagues had just taken a week off before that, and he pulled me aside after training session and said, Ed, can I just give you some advice? I said, sure. He said, I think you should just take the whole week off and try not to work as much as you can on that week. And I was like, kind of like, I don't think I really need it. But you're right, it would actually probably be quite nice. Because he said the biggest regret, he only took 3 days off, I think it was. Or we had 4 days off, and he said he wishes he took the week. And so I said, okay, maybe I'll take an extra day off. I'll take Tuesday off as well. So take Tuesday to Friday, I'll come back into work on Saturday. And I think I spoke to you, did I speak to you or was it Al? I can't remember. Anyway, you covered my class on the Tuesday. Did you cover my class on Tuesday?
Al ended up covering
it, yeah. So Al had actually volunteered and said, look, why don't you take a day off on Tuesday, which I thought was quite nice, a staff member telling me, encouraging me to go and take leave. And then Tammy basically said to me as we were sharing a taxi to work one day, why are you taking next Saturday? I said, well, I'll take a group class and I feel a bit guilty getting someone to cover my group class, which is why I didn't want to take off Tuesday as well. But she was like, don't be ridiculous, I'll take it. Please, just take the day off. And again, I thought it was really nice that, two of the team members actually kind of pushed me to take more time off. So I said, okay, cool. Reluctantly, admittedly, I did take another day off. So I think, but putting into context, I actually haven't taken more than 3 days consecutively off work, actually more than 2 days consecutively off work since late 2019. Which was my last holiday. Yeah, the last time I'd left Hong Kong, and that was just that was a Christmas trip in 2019 in Bali. Of course, we had some forced closures during COVID where the gym was closed, but that was definitely not a carefree time. That was probably some of the most stressful times that we had as a company and as a business owner. So, I remember 2020, I didn't actually take any of my leave. I think I took 2 days of my allotted leave, and I just kind of binned it all off at the end of the year, and all good, we'll just move on to next year. And then here we are in late November, and I still have 95% of my leave not taken. So part of me felt, fuck, I need to, and again, Izzy, our general manager, said, you need to take some leave, you've got all this leave and you haven't taken it, you're telling all your team to take leave and you're not taking it. And I thought, yeah, shit, that's a pretty good point actually. Again, I should probably lead by example here. If I'm telling everyone else to take leave and I'm not taking it, what example am I setting? And so, yeah, that was kind of the context of the situation. So I ended up taking 5 days. I'd originally planned for 3, took 5, and here I am. I have so much more to say on this, but I don't know where to go on it.
Yeah, so my first one I wanted to ask you is like, physically, how do you feel taking it off? I mean, I kind of know the answer to this already, which is funny, but yeah, so did you feel like physically you needed the time off before you,
You know,
was it like, because I know that you love the deload.
okay, let's talk about, if we're talking about physically, I guess like the only thing I can relate is like really how my body is actually feeling at that point in time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the week, you know, the end of the week before I took the day off, the week off, I was starting to feel, probably for the 2.5 weeks leading up to that, in the context of the training block that we were following with LPC, there was an 8-week training cycle and we had some testing week 7, week 8. I could feel by week 7 that I had a few like aches and pains starting to come back in. I had a lot of surgeries on my body, as we both had, but typically for me, when I start to overreach, get closer to needing a bit of a break, my joints, when I've had past surgeries on, tend to get quite inflamed. Do you find that as well?
Maybe I'm just not aware of it. I don't notice it, I think.
So 2 things for me is that my sleep disturbance increases. So I'll typically wake up a little bit more throughout the night, even if I'm nailing all my routines. And then joint pain, specifically my knees, my shoulder and my wrist, will all start to increase a little bit. And so in the final 2 weeks of the cycle, those all started to kind of creep in. Now, kind of going back to strength and conditioning terms here, it's kind of expected sometimes, but by the end of an 8-week cycle, when you've been progressively overloading, you know, weight and intensity, typically your body isn't necessarily very fresh towards the end, but you kind of there's sometimes that fine line where you just got to push through it a little bit, knowing that you're going to take a week or so to recuperate. And that's kind of the mindset that I took. It's like, okay, well, I booked in for this week off. I'm just going to push the training a little bit more than I normally would, knowing that I'm going to have a whole week of recovery. But I definitely wasn't feeling great. Oh, another thing that I was starting to notice was my shifts weren't great. So as I was getting towards the end of that 8-week training cycle, I could feel like I was getting a bit of indigestion sometimes, was feeling quite gassy, would feel quite bloated after meals, and like my morning poos weren't as good as they had been for the last 7 weeks. And context again, the 6 weeks before that, those last 2 weeks, I've been feeling probably some of the best I've felt in a really, really long time. Like, didn't have to take any deloads, you know, had dialed in my sleep, which I talked about on the podcast already, was feeling really energized, like was getting really strong, the body was feeling great. And so, you know, it's just a good reminder that it doesn't last forever, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so physically going into the week off, I was actually not feeling great. Feeling like, okay, if I'm not going to take a week off here, I'm going to take a pretty aggressive training deload.
And you ended up doing fuck all training.
Yeah, so you know, in that week off, you know,
you had plans, didn't you?
I had plans for sure, and the plan was, firstly, which I've had a few actual other business owners message me when I posted on Instagram, when I said that I'm not going to be going into Coastal all week and I'm going to join another gym and do my training there. I had a few other gym coaches say like, well, why did you feel the need to not go to your gym?
So I fucking hate it.
But I mean, like, honestly,
thanks for not.
To be honest, I did actually want to come to Coastal, and I did actually want to come and train and be with the team, but
it's about changing the environment.
It's just changing the environment. It's like, if I'm actually going to try, if this is supposed to be simulating a holiday, which we can't have in Hong Kong right now because we can't really travel because we've got 3 hotel quarantines. So I wanted to try and actually give myself the best opportunity to decompress. And I thought physical separation from the place that I spend the 90% of my living life in would be a good idea. So
I completely agree.
Yeah, so I joined like a 24-hour gym, Go24. Joined the membership on the Tuesday. Did my first session. The goal was I'd written out so I did a few things. One thing that I did was I wrote a list of all the things I wanted to do on my week off. And then I also wrote out my whole training split for what I was going to do in Go24. So I planned for 4 training sessions. I was going to do just pure bodybuilding. I'd written out like Tuesday quads, back, calves. I'd literally written out everything in my training diary as to what I wanted to do. Went in on that Tuesday, and I just wanted to basically just use equipment that we didn't have at Coastal. And so I did like a hack squat, I did basically like a quad and an upper body pulling session, and I felt awful. Like my joints were really sore, I felt tired, I wasn't motivated to go in there. Like I really
didn't have your hype man behind you.
didn't have Paddy the hype man in there. And it was just also, I mean, maybe another conversation, just strange being in another environment. It took me like, I just felt a bit uncomfortable, to be honest.
Just going off on that sidetrack, I think we forget actually how intimidating it is to come into a gym, especially a CrossFit gym where people know each other and there's a lot of communication going on. And we forget that because we work in that environment. But then I don't know if you probably haven't had that much in the last few years, gone to other gyms.
I would honestly say it's the first time I worked out in another gym in over 2 years.
It's daunting. It is.
It's weird. So the first thing I noticed was I walked in and no one smiled or said hello.
Yeah, there's no interaction. That's the difference between a CrossFit gym.
Not even the person working behind front desk like said hello to me. Didn't even make eye contact with me.
Yeah.
I had to go like searching for her eyes and say, hello, I'm here, I'd like to just join the gym for a few days. Straight away, that was strange. Yeah, I could feel eyes on me as I walked in the gym as well.
Gym shot fest.
Yeah, exactly. So then, found my locker, kind of found my way, just put myself in the locker, and just basically
Put yourself in the locker.
put my stuff in the locker. Did a lap of the gym because I just wanted to see what was in there, and I actually felt like quite self-conscious, almost walking around, feeling like people were looking at me like I'm intruding in their territory.
Yeah, it's really.
And I also felt like, I don't know what, it just felt really uncomfortable. And so I kind of like walked around quite sheepishly actually, kind of with my tail between my legs, just kind of trying to not look anyone in the eyes, make them feel uncomfortable. Because the few people that did look in the eyes, like gave me a really uncomfortable look back, like, why is he looking me in the eyes? No one looks me in the eyes in this gym.
Mid-set.
Yeah, and I was just trying to be kind of, I guess, friendly and welcoming. So that was the first weird thing. The second weird thing I found myself doing non-stop when I was in there was critiquing everyone's form and wanting to help people. I remember on the first day there was this girl on the Olympic lifting platform snatching, and she was missing every snatch. Technically it wasn't awful, but I could see a couple of things that she was doing that was why she was missing her snatches. But she was also like, every lift she'd just go, oh fuck, she was just huffing and puffing, making a massive scene, which was kind of annoying me a little bit because I could tell it was all for show. She was slamming her barbells, like throwing it around, missing every lift, and I had to hold myself back from walking up to her and actually saying, hey, like, I think you just need to be a bit more patient.
Why didn't you?
Because I don't know, I just didn't think, I think it was like giving unsolicited advice. She wasn't asking for it. She did what I did, maybe, don't know.
Ask to give feedback first. And
then maybe, for sure.
Missed out on a potential eye trick.
I did find that everyone had headphones in, so I put headphones in at first because I thought maybe no one else is talking here, so I'll stick my headphones in. And I hated it. I couldn't actually work out with my music in my head because I couldn't hear my voice, and I don't know. We never
can't hear the grunts and stuff.
Yeah, and I actually like to hear like the machine sliding and I don't know, really stay focused on the actual exercise. So that was weird. I started with music in, took them out, put them away. Started with my phone in my pocket because I was kind of wanting to record the workout I was doing, which I never do here because I have a laptop open. And then the phone was just getting in the way, and so I ended up taking my phone out and just like sticking it in the locker.
That would have looked really weird if you'd have pulled up the laptop to be fair.
I thought, genuinely leave my house, I thought about it.
I'm going to do that now. When I go back at Christmas, I'm going to take my laptop.
I would, 100%.
Set up a box in the corner.
Yeah, gym etiquette, zero gym etiquette. So I remember I was pairing lower body and upper body exercises together, and I deliberately chose, knowing that it's a bit of a free for all in these gyms. I was there at a quiet time, there wasn't many people there, so I deliberately chose a leg, like for example, leg extension. It was like a machine pull down, and they were right next to each other, so it was quite clear that I was moving back and forth and wasn't wasting much time. And I did one set of leg extension. Honestly, before my ass had even left the seat, someone had like got one leg into the leg extension ready to lift. And like the settings were completely different because this person was probably like 8 inches shorter than me. And just like started just changing all the settings and everything. And I was like, hey, no worries, I'd love to just swap in with you if that's okay. And they just kind of gave me like just a bit of a grunt. And so didn't really have a conversation with it, but I ended up just helping this person go in and out of their settings. But these are just things that we're not conditioned to. I'm not, especially having been in global gym. I know you spent quite a bit of time in them, and so you forget, just the comfort of your own gym, and you just get very familiar and used to it. I'm sure everyone else in Go24 didn't find these things weird because they're just used to it.
Yeah, you do get used to it, but I completely resonate with what you mean about the atmosphere. It's aggressive and ego everywhere.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Like back in the UK, I would always train in a pure gym because it's literally 10 quid a month.
Yeah.
And they actually have some decent equipment there now. They got loads of machines who, like worst case scenario, you can just get glorious pump. And they've got like a bit of a functional fitness area. Anyway, it's like you go in and you're kind of like you say, you're like, oh hi, and everyone's just like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like there's like these like fat blokes with like think they're huge, massive like upper bodies, skinny legs, wearing like a string vest.
Yeah.
And they're just like they're like, there's my bench.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my god. Anyway, after a while, like after a week or so, you're like, oh, it's not worth it. You just put the headphones in and you're like, sorry.
And you know the thing is, so I planned to go 4 times. I ended up only going twice, just because I didn't really want to go. Not because of the gym out.
Water park on the way.
Yeah, water park fucked me. But the second time I went in, I could feel myself, just thinking, well, if everyone else is going to be a dick in there, why don't I just be a dick?
I think that's gym etiquette.
And you know what? I didn't. I was like, old me would have just fallen back into that, and reciprocity would have given people what they give me. And actually, I found it was kind of like it was a nice learning observation for me that I came in and actually was like, you know what? I'm going to try and change the norm of the commercial gym goer here, and I'm going to continue. So I walked in. The lady behind the front desk didn't say hi to me the first time. I searched for her eyes and said, good morning, hope you're having a good day. And I could see it lit her up, no one's ever said good morning to me in this place.
Oh, you got spat on.
Yeah. I ended up sharing the cable machine with another guy, having a bit of a conversation with him. Yeah, it's actually really nice. And the second time, and just because of my change of perception and attitude, made a massive difference to my experience. Because the first time I was a bit shocked and taken back and just learning what this environment was like. And the second time I came in with my agenda to say, I'm not gonna let that take away from me having a good session, enjoying my time. And I think there's many parallels to pull from that into real life.
Yeah. So going off then physically, you would have, most people would then think that because you only trained twice, you'd be pretty fresh coming into the Monday when you came back to training, and that wasn't the case.
And that felt awful. It's like, I think to Thursday off was on Tuesday. It probably wasn't until Sunday where I actually started to feel like, okay, I'm starting to feel okay now. And I think, really what that is when you're in a constant state of busyness, which is essentially what most of us are in work life, kind of moving to the grind. And I don't want to say grind like it's a negative thing at all. I think we all love our jobs here, and as hopefully what I said at the start here, it was harder for me to take time off than it was to actually work, because I wanted to just be in here. But you are essentially in a perpetual state of stress when you're just working. Your mind's occupied from pretty much the moment you wake up. You've got meetings, you've got agendas, you've got timelines, you've got a schedule, and then it's bedtime that you repeat. And so, it probably wasn't until that Sunday that my body was actually starting to feel good again. So I was just essentially, as I let go of all that stress, and I was waking up without an alarm. I was not really setting an agenda for the day, and I was just kind of just easily moving through the motions each day, which was really nice. The biggest eye-opener for me was wow, this is what it feels like to not have an agenda. You're so used to, even when we go out and we get 20 minutes of sunshine, we're checking the clock constantly, what time do we need to be back in to eat our lunch and train our next climb. And to not have any of that was really weird. Even on a Sunday, which is our day off, we're counting down the hours because we've only got one day off before we're back to work again. And to not have that pressure is a massive game changer. And that, I think that alone is probably one of the biggest game changers for me, other than obviously not having to come into work. But there's just there's a lot of weight off your shoulders. There's just this room to breathe and decompress. And the process of decompressing takes time. I think, put it into context, probably where I've come from, almost 2 years of not taking a break, that decompression time is going to be longer before I'm feeling back to normal again. And in hindsight, coming back to work on Monday, I actually think I probably needed 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Liam came back from his 3-4 day break and was like, he came in, I think he almost PR'd his back squat. He was feeling awesome.
Yeah.
He was feeling so good and recharged. And I was kind of thinking I was going to come back and do the same. I came back and I could hardly do an air squat.
Yeah.
And it was just, I guess context is so important here that, come Sunday, I was actually contemplating maybe I should just take another week.
Really?
Yeah, I was. But then I ended up doing a bit of work on Sunday morning. I had some client calls and stuff, so I had the week off, and it like reinvigorated me to want to get back. I was like, fuck, I just love coaching people, and I can't wait to go and see the team and be back training coach still, not in this commercial gym anymore. But I think what would have been really right for my body and my mind was to actually take another week off.
Yeah.
Before because you kind of want to. I think a lot of people could draw parallels here when they go on holiday. A lot of people when they're going up to a holiday, leading up to a holiday, you work really, really hard because you're like, well, I've got to earn my 2 weeks off, or you've got deadlines to fill, so you don't want to work on holiday. And what you actually do, you actually end up creating more stress in the run into a holiday. And then how many times you hear about people go on holiday and get sick? So they kind of get off the flight, they've got a cold, or they've got gastro, they've got something, their body's just so run down. It isn't until probably the second week of holiday that they're able to start enjoying the holiday.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of the process I just went through.
I guess it's the beauty of a 3-week quarantine, isn't it?
yeah, exactly.
So, my Christmas break is going to be absolutely jam-packed with, moving around the country and seeing people doing this, doing that. So I'll get back in quarantine and be like, fuck, I need 3 weeks in a hotel room just to not do much.
Exactly. The
physically.
Yeah. I think that's another thing as well. You're going back home, there's some people you haven't seen, you're catching up with your missus as well. Like, it's not really going to be a decompression break. It's going to be essentially a different type of stress that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many people can relate, but needing a holiday from your holiday is often how a lot of us feel, and that's kind of how I feel. I need another break from my break.
Yeah. Because
it just wasn't quite enough to allow me to really fully decompress.
Well, that's the importance of a reload week that we had this week.
Yeah.
No, not this week. That was last week. Last week we started a new 8-week block, and although we were deloading the majority of the movements, we were still doing some testing in the LPC program, and Elite weren't aligned on that, were they?
No, it was just low performing compete.
Yeah. So then the next week after that deload week was actually intentionally, like 5 reps in reserve, 4 reps in reserve on every exercise, just really cruise back into the program, don't push it. But you haven't really, you were saying you didn't really do that today, you kind of push your training pretty hard.
Yeah, so I came back in and deliberately thought, okay, I'm gonna treat this week as a bit of a reload week. And so Monday was just super easy. You're not comparing weights to weights you would normally do, what you previously did. It's just move for quality. I was doing more things, like more of a bodybuilding focus versus heavy lifting. Not really trying to get necessarily stronger or fitter in that session, just like reintroducing movement. Because honestly, I hadn't squat in a week because the knees were tender in that week off. So I deliberately just said I'm going to avoid any joints or movements that don't feel great. Hadn't put my arms over my head either, so it was just a bit weird doing those 2 movements together. And then today, kind of came into session, we thought the same thing, I'm just going to take it easy. I think just naturally the movements in today's workout, there was snatching, there was muscle ups, there was kicking chest above pull ups, they're all quite dynamic movements. And even though I chose like the lower rep schemes on all of them, kept my snatches a little bit lighter, in hindsight after finishing the session, I thought, fuck, actually I probably pushed that a little bit harder than my body wanted to go. And one might say like, well, why is it a bad thing? You didn't miss any lifts, your movement was good, but all that's going to do is push back my recovery time just a little bit longer. Yeah. So essentially what I'm trying to do right now is get back to feeling good again as quick as I can. And if I do hard sessions during a period of time when my body's not quite ready for it yet, the time it's going to take me to get back to feeling good is just going to be longer and longer.
Yeah, it doesn't help when the atmosphere is absolutely papping.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I was. It's nice having
feeding off everyone else.
Yeah, there's a few new coaches on the floor right now. There's more people. We're all training, doing the same program together. Like everyone's having a good time.
Em got a first bar muscle
up.
Liam actually did a muscle up that didn't look like shit. You won't even listen to this anyway, so
you won't.
Guys. Cool. Let's talk about mentally then. So, been working. I feel like obviously I haven't experienced during COVID here. I haven't experienced pre-COVID, but I feel like the team has exponentially been growing, and all of our workload has been growing. And that's a good thing. But we've all been really busy, continually pushing like self-development, group development in all aspects of the business and in our own development and coaching, etc. And I feel like we're working really, really hard. So it'd be interesting to feel like you felt like mentally you needed that break as well. Did you feel, like leading up to the 5 days you had off, were you like, I'm actually fried, or not so much?
I think again, I needed the break to realize just how fatigued I was mentally and physically, because when you get into the rhythm and routine, like adrenaline gets you through anything. And I think that's essentially what starts to happen, is your body starts to get towards that state of fatigue. So I mentioned the last couple of weeks of training, everything was starting to get sore. What your body starts to release more of is cortisol, right? Your body starts to realize, okay, this guy or this girl is starting to run on empty here. I need to give them a bit of artificial something to help them get through their day and perform at their best. And so we start to excrete more adrenaline essentially to get us through each day. But we know that when we're excreting more adrenaline and cortisol, there's a finite timeline on that. And eventually your body's gonna run out of it, or there's gonna be a whole host of not so positive knock-on effects that come from over excretion of cortisol. And I think kind of lost my train of thought.
You're talking about if you're too stressed all the time.
Yeah, so I think, so in the moment, as I was leading up to my break, wasn't actually feeling like I needed the break, but it was 2 days in that suddenly, when all that decompression started happening, and you start to just feel things more, that's always a real telltale sign for me. You kind of, when your body's excreting more and more cortisol, as you get more and more stressed, essentially, remember stress can be physical, emotional, or cognitive, is that we start to actually feel a little bit less. So you'll sometimes realize and feel that like you actually can't feel things like niggles and injuries and pains and stuff when you're training. You tend to find that you're probably a lot less present. Your mind gets a little bit, your thoughts go a little bit more wandering and kind of far off. Busy, yeah, exactly. Those are all telltale signs of an overactive or overstressed body and mind. And it wasn't until I decompressed for a couple of days that I suddenly started to feel, firstly, I was able to be a lot more present again, was able to like really just be present in my daily activities. My head was definitely less of a scramble in terms of just away with the thoughts, away with the fairies. And I started to feel all the aches and pains that had probably been present for the last 2-3 weeks, but adrenaline had masked them all. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so when that kind of adrenaline curtain had dropped, suddenly it was like, okay, actually my knee actually hurts a lot. This knee also hurts a lot. Oh, my shoulders aren't feeling great, my spine's a little bit sore. And I started to just feel everything. And that for me was a perfect example that, okay, this was very much needed now. And I really think, knowing what the rest of the team has gone through, not just the last couple of weeks, but we went through a period of time where Tammy was away for 9 weeks, right? Where everyone was taking more classes, we changed our routines, we were taking early morning classes, most of us, and a lot of that is cumulatively building up. I know for you, you've got a lot of expenses that you're going to incur during your holiday at Christmas, so you've been saying yes to probably working clients you wouldn't normally say yes to, knowing that you wanted to kind of just fill the bank account a little bit more to give you a little bit more cushion for when you do travel. That will all take its toll. And we may feel good right now, but it's not until we actually have that break and that time where we'll realise it's how important it is to actually A, manage this stuff more effectively, and B, the biggest takeaway for me here is I need to take these breaks more frequently.
Yeah.
I need to not wait 2 years to take a week off work, and instead I want to try and see if I can do something like a 4 to 5 day break every kind of 3 months or so. If something like travel is not going to be a thing where we're going away for 2 to 3 weeks, then it's on me to do that. And again, this all comes down to longevity. Like, how can we do what we're doing now consistently for the next 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20 years? That's where that's where the magic is. That's where we'll create amazing things as a team. That's where we'll be able to maintain happiness and fulfillment in our jobs. If it's just all about go, 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 now, short-term gains, sacrifice and long-term health, no one wins.
Yeah.
And I know that because I lived much of my life as a business owner in that mindset of just work your ass off now, reap the gains later. But that's just not how I want to operate. And this was a good reminder for me that I've almost let myself down a little bit here, but it's been a good wake-up call.
Yeah.
I'll definitely change things going forward, and it's going to make me encourage the rest of the team to take more breaks and to be even more mindful. Because even if you feel great now, there is a price to pay. And I remember when you first arrived, we talked about this in the podcast for sure in the past, you were just so hyped in this new environment, back coaching again, meeting all these new people, being impressionable to people around you, and you just saying yes to everything. You were starting early, finishing late, working 7 days a week. And there was quite a few times I remember just putting you aside being like, I love what you're doing, but you need to slow down because you're not going to be able to sustain this. And I know now you've freed up a day a week where you actually have full separation from the gym, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think you probably, I don't know, how do you feel? Do you
Massive difference.
You start to feel it as well?
Yeah, and I think it's been, in general, just looking after myself, like being more mindful of everything that I'm doing to look after myself more. And old me would have, with the injuries that I've got, like say for example my back that I'm still going in and out with, I would have just been like, that one day that my back felt bad, I would have had the 3 days that my back was feeling weird, and then on the 4th day when it felt good again, I would have been like, cool, straight back to 10 RM back squat. And would have just, the sleep that I was struggling with last month, and I was getting maybe 5 to, if I was lucky, over 7 hours a night, and would have just, wouldn't have looked retrospectively, or wouldn't have analysed that and been like, where can I improve on this? It would just be like, just chug more coffee. And like, all of these, the short-term counteracting the symptoms as opposed to looking at the cause. And that's now what I'm doing with everything. And like the sleep, for example, just by being in bed earlier and having a more solid routine on its own, with like not having as much blue light, means I'm now sleeping 7 to 8 hours every night pretty consistently now for the last 2-3 weeks, and it feels so much better. And
Crazy difference, amazing.
Crazy difference. Like my joints are feeling much better. Like the previous lap, when I had that backload of a month of like 5 to 7 hours, if I was lucky, I'd go into the leg press, and it would take me literally 6 or 7 sets of doing leg press at like light weights before either my quad tendon or both of my patellar tendons felt like they were actually going to tear. Actually probably like a 7 out of 10 pain. And I feel like I'm pretty tolerant of pain. And I was like, fuck, that feels like it's literally about to ping off. And then I do some like isometric leg extensions. I probably might floss it, or I do my do my glute band. And then like after 20 minutes or 25 minutes, I'm ready to do my first working set. Whereas now I'm able to jump in pretty much within like 2 or 3 sets going into the heavy weight.
Such a good reminder for you just how important the sleep piece is.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we end up biasing things like flossing and more warming up and more stretching, thinking that that's the problem and that's why pain exists. But 9 times out of 10, it's sleep. It's sleep that's causing all the issues.
Yeah, and then going off on the day off side as well, I, as much as I enjoy coaching, etc., I know that I work best in the mornings, and I'm an early riser. I like to be up in the morning early, and I like to have evenings to relax. Like, I think that's ingrained in me from school. Mum was always getting me out of bed early, and then my school started at 8 o'clock and finished at 5. And then when I finished at 5, I was like, I'm not doing anything. Like, I would always come back, have like a snack or like a cheese sandwich or something before dinner, and I'd fall asleep watching Simpsons on the sofa or something, like a nap before dinner. And then the whole evening would just be like, just relax and chill out. And from there, it feels like I remember doing when I was doing recruitment and I was finishing at 6 o'clock. I was like, fuck, that's an hour of my like evening chill time, not 5 o'clock when I finish. So when I was doing my Thursdays, I was doing stuff in the mornings that was kind of like my half day off. So I was still getting up early, but then I was finishing at 8 o'clock. So I was doing 5, 6, 7, or 4, 5, 6, 7, or we were recording the podcast, and then I was doing 4, 5, 6, 7, and then finishing at 8. It takes me half an hour at least to walk home, very stimulating, or get a cab or whatever, and then getting to bed. I'm like wide awake. I'm up at 7:15 to coach on Friday, and just like that. And then I work Saturday. I work something on Sunday. So it was just like a constant spiral of 7 days. Like, and you know me, I'm high energy, so like. I'm taxing myself just by being
You're
me.
stressful. It's stressful just to be alone in a dark room.
Yeah, exactly. People are like, how do you survive quarantine? How do you not like drive yourself crazy? Like, I do. But yeah, so like having that day off, and it's only been 3 weeks now that I've had that Thursday off, and it feels great. Just like to be able to go to the beach or go for a walk or go for a hike, or you know, like the one I went to the beach in the morning 2 weeks ago, and then just went into Central, just wandered around a couple of bookstores, did a little bit of programming, went for a float tank, and that was my day. Like,
awesome.
Yeah, so I can now, having been in the trenches and then coming out the other side, like it's needed, and I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, it's interesting coming back into the workplace after a week off. Was thinking, okay, how do I want to do things differently? Like, what have I learned from this week off? There was a few.
That was my next question.
Yeah, there was a few little things we could talk about. Instead, like making sure meditation stays a part of my day. One thing I did was I stuck to my morning and nighttime routines the whole time throughout my week off. So I was still going to bed, 8:15, but still waking up at 5:30.
That was my other question. Why did you stick to your routines?
The reason I stuck to my routines was because I was already thinking ahead about getting back into work and making that transition as easy as possible. Similarly, I'd already created the routine, which meant that I've been doing it for so long now that it's almost easier to stick to it. I'm also kind of like you, I'm definitely more of a morning person. Like, I want to maximize the time I have in daylight, and when the sun goes down, it's like, for me, that's just dinner time and go to bed. And so I didn't set an alarm though. I deliberately didn't set an alarm, but my body just woke up very naturally, give or take 15-20 minutes away from when I normally set an alarm. But that was it. It was just to maintain regularity. I knew that I'd actually probably get better sleep if I continued to go to bed early and wake up early. If I tried to stay up later and do more in the night, I know I would have just woken up at a normal early wake time anyway.
I felt that.
Yeah, and I really tried to maximize and trying to be in bed for at least 9 hours every single night. But kind of like the tangent that I was about to go on was, what have I learned from this week off? Knowing that, okay, Ed, you haven't really given yourself probably the time off you needed throughout the last 2 years, which is why this 1 week isn't enough for you right now. And so I think there's 2 ways you can kind of go about it. One way, which I think society is very much has been ingrained to live by, is work really hard, take a 1 to 3 week holiday, work really hard, take a 1 to 3 week holiday. So you kind of have these like more aggressive forced deloads built into your life, which then allows you to be recharged to come back and hit it hard again when you get back into normal life. I guess I'm talking more to that the type A individual, which I would say most of us here. The other option that you do have is just to try to live life, do work, whatever that looks like for you, in a more sustainable manner, where you're not needing to have these really aggressive deloads kind of every 3 months or so. You can really draw parallels from training. It's like the smart athlete who self-regulates their training all the time doesn't necessarily have to have big extended periods of deloads, versus the athlete who's just hitting it hard all the time is having to take these forced deloads when they get injured, or they over push it, or their body's so beaten up they need to take a really big aggressive rest. And I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think both have their place. I think life also demands periods of our time where we have to be really focused and really intense, and then we're going to have periods of time where we can be a little bit less focused and less intense, in which case you would go for the latter. But one of the things I really wanted to adopt, and I think going back again some more context. So how I've been living the last 2 years, since COVID hit, I've definitely tried to be a bit more sustainable and with my approach to work. Like I've really tried not to take too much work home. Like I really cut off work at 7:45 now. That used to be like up until bedtime, maybe even earlier I cut off work, to be honest. You know, I'm really diligent about getting out and getting at least 20 minutes of sunshine outside every single day. You know, I ride a bike in and to and from work to deliberately give myself a little bit more time in nature. I manage stress way better. I manage sleep routines way better. I manage morning routines way better. So generally speaking, the amount of stress that I do on a daily basis in this last 2 years is considerably less, probably to the 10 years prior to that as a business owner. But kind of coming back out of this week off, ask myself, what do I want to do differently? Okay, one of the things was, okay, I want to make sure I keep up the habit of meditating for 10 minutes a day. You know, have that really forced break, and that's like a guided meditation using Headspace. It's not just closing my eyes and being present, it's like actually the process, the practice of meditation. And then I want to just be a little bit more diligent on trying to get off my phone, perhaps even earlier at night time. I guess the second thing is just giving myself space in my day to make sure that my day isn't so back to back to back to back to back. So I have more of a sustainable approach to getting back after work. And now I'm 3 days in, and I only thought about this as you've been talking, and I've been thinking about what the last 3 days has been like, and I've not achieved any of that. You know, I was just talking about my schedule with Lee and trying to book an appointment. I've literally booked myself in pretty much back to back every single day this week. I've really missed my meditation yesterday. Yourself and myself just had a really quick meditation together before this podcast. That was only a little 5 minutes. Like that was more of like a desperation meditation because this whole day's just been so, you know, so gung ho. Yeah. And so I'm going to leave this podcast room and revisit some of the things I promised myself I'll do a better job at and make amends for next week already. Because all I've done now, I've just gone from this great week off that my body really needed. I also recognised it wasn't enough. I've just come back and I've thrown myself back in the deep end in every way possible, and that's not very sustainable.
But that is the first week back, and that is the case that there'll be stuff that you do need to catch up on.
Yeah.
And you have, you know, you kind of have to fit a lot of those things in. You know, you haven't spoken to clients for 5 days, and they expect to be spoken to every couple of days, or you know, whatever it is. There's business meetings that you missed out on. You know, all these things that, you know, it builds up. Like we're all very busy. You're especially busy, so
that's a good point.
You have 5 days off. The first week is, but I'm pretty confident that second week you'll be able to then be like, let's push that back, or we did that, we did it another time.
No, you're right. That is a good point actually.
But it was really cool that we got to just sit down and do a meditation. We both talked about how weird it would have looked if someone had walked in.
Yeah.
On us just being able to sit down.
Yeah, no, basically I walked into this podcast, obviously I knew that we were recording a podcast, and you know, we've had a pretty hectic day, and because things are just they're just booked in back to back. There's no decompression time to anything at the moment, and so I came into this podcast room, and Paddy, you set everything up already, and I just said to you, Paddy, I need to have a real quick meditation before we do this. And I feel like you were about to get up and leave. Were you going to get up and leave?
I was about to grab my phone.
Oh, okay. And I was like, I asked you, do you want to do it with me? And you were like, yeah, fuck it. And I just thought, that's really cool that we can just sit here, and we are sitting face to face here.
Yeah.
We clicked on Andy on Headspace, and we both did like a really good 5-minute meditation. I was like deep in the zone. And how I felt, I don't know about you, but how I felt coming out of that meditation was like night and day to how I felt 5 minutes before that. 5 minutes before that, my throat was hurting a little bit from, you know, just doing 2 hours of coaching on the floor. I was just like, my joints were all sore, head was a bit of a scramble, and I just felt so rejuvenated after just 5 minutes of focused breathing. That was like, all right, I could switch into the next task now. If we'd have gone straight into that podcast, I think my head would have been somewhere else.
So what I noticed was I was just chilled out a little bit. I think, like talking about the adrenaline stuff, I think my adrenaline's very active, and
yeah,
like I get hyped up really quickly. And I was doing PT with Toshi, one of our members, on some Olympic lifting, and a couple of things within the session, the couple of cues started to click with him from the last 2-3 weeks that we've been doing some stuff. And his improvements were night and day in just the session of like some segmented clean pulls, some 3-position cleans, and some like an overhead jerk complex. And I was just like, yes!
Yeah, I can hear you across the room getting really excited.
Yeah, I was jumping it. I was like, just wanted to like, I don't want to finish the session. I was just like, we fucking love it. Just like I do when we're training.
Yeah.
Like I'll just be in my element in mid training session. I just love shouting across, like, we love this stuff, don't we?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, yeah, we do. But yeah, so I was like hyped up from that. I had a little bit more food, and I was just looking forward to doing the podcast, and I was kind of like itching to go.
Yeah.
And then you came and you're like, I just need 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, struggling.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, what's made today, especially poignant in terms of why I really needed that little break. I think doing PD this morning, like I was really fired up to talk about.
Very intense for you.
It was quite intense.
All of us actually.
Yeah, and I did, because it was quite a complex conversation that I needed to. I did quite a bit of prep work for this morning, because knowing that we're talking about moment arms, resistance profiles, strength profiles, stuff that we all kind of know about, but no one I think is really confident. Even myself, I've only more recently come to feel more confident articulating those concepts.
Yeah.
And this was my first time presenting to a group, the concepts of those 3 things. So that was just a really stimulating hour. At the end of that hour, I felt like, oh, that was a big 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I went straight into snatching, straight into muscle ups, straight into that. Then we had, I think, 25 minutes outside. Then it was like, come in, get lunch down, climb. And it's just the context of what your day looks like makes a massive difference to how you feel in that moment.
Yeah. So 1 or 2 quick questions. Did you work on anything mentally while you were away? I know that you talked about that. We chatted about this a couple of days ago of you talking about all the education that you've done for yourself, and you haven't really, normally with that amount of time off, you would then go searching for more education and go and think, what can I do to better myself? What things can I learn about in this time off? And actually you intentionally didn't give yourself that to be able to process. Is there anything that you were processing specifically in terms of education? I know that you've just done the N1 course.
Yeah.
Is there anything, within kind of self-development and like mental growth or emotional intelligence that you were working on specifically?
Yeah, I think so I was doing things like, not having a gender each day, really just taking my time with each day, spending a lot of time in the sun, spending a lot of time just sitting still. Like my step count was way down, wasn't doing any exercise, had a lot more time just to my thoughts, and because I wasn't working, I did have to do a bit of work every morning, and I knew I did actually have to do it because there's certain jobs that fall on me that I need to do. But I was trying to cut off about 8 a.m. every day, and from 8 a.m. onwards each day, it would just be like leisurely activities, getting out in the sunshine, playing tennis or easy sport, and that was pretty much it. But on my list of things I wanted to do, one of the things was like do my course every day. One of the things I wanted to do was get back to playing guitar every day. I did 3 times a week. One of the things I wanted to do was read a book, and I didn't actually really get to do any of those because when it came time to sit down and do it, I didn't want to. I didn't have like the mental juice and capacity to want to take on more information, and I just wanted to be. And I think the more I just sat still, the more it was just kind of like thinking about so much of the things that we talk about in book club, emotional intelligence and concepts we speak about recently, especially the one about building a home in yourself. I thought about that a lot. With regards to education or the course I've been doing, rather than learning more knowledge, I just kind of sat and thought about the knowledge more. But because I wasn't doing that much work and actually programming and training with clients, a lot of the education stuff kind of went to the back of the brain. And it was more just about, a lot of it was just thinking about the importance of being present and having space. That was what a lot of my thoughts were surrounded around, just how important it is to have that, and how happy I was actually just like not speaking sometimes for hours and just like looking at the sea or just like sitting in the sun just by myself. How nice it was to actually do that. I did things like every morning before breakfast, I just walked out of the house. And I just walked down the waterfront and did a little stretch with all the other old Chinese blokes.
Punch yourself in the
Yeah,
leg.
yeah, smacked my nuts for about 50 minutes. And then I walked home. And I did that every day. And I was like, this is such a great way to start my day.
Yeah.
How can I incorporate this back into work and life? And I haven't done that yet. But
That's what Mark Bell talks about. 10-minute
Yeah.
walks.
yeah, just 10-minute walks.
Just get
the
out.
blood flowing, get sunshine through the eyes. Haven't checked social media, haven't checked emails. Just move and then come back in and do it. And I want to actually try and find a way to try and actually make that a part of my day now.
Well, that's why I've stopped skating to work.
Yeah, you just walk in.
Just walking. It's so much. I just feel great. Like
Yeah.
I feel, and it gives me the opportunity. Like if I feel like I need a bit of to get energized, I'll listen to some tunes.
Yeah.
And if I want to be a bit more pensive, I'll listen to a podcast or I'll listen to a book and just like, or I'll call when I'm walking home. Often I'll just call someone.
Yeah.
And just it's great. 30 minutes where I'm also getting my steps up. Basically a bit of zone 2, and at extra hour of zone 2 throughout the day. Just it's great. Love it.
Yeah.
Last thing, would you recommend it?
Yes.
I know that we've all got something that we, as a company, we have that a lot of technically self-employed PTs and coaches don't have that we have is 12 days annual leave. So, you know, those people that do have the opportunity to take annual leave or even unpaid leave, you'd recommend it?
Yeah, I kind of look at it. I always go back to like the training process. I think it's just what I think about most of my day. But it's like in training, when you kind of think about a break as a deload from life, right? You're taking the deload from the things you normally do, which for most people, at least Monday to Friday, is turning up to their job and spending probably 9 hours in their office or doing their work, whether it's from home or not. So when you're writing a training program and you're thinking about things like deloads are often incorporated into a training program in one of two ways. Number one is a forced deload, when shit hits the fan, that you just need to have to take a break. You're injured, you're broken, you need some time off. The second one is a planned deload. A planned deload is when we're saying ahead of time, okay, at the end of this 12 to 16 week training cycle, we're gonna have a week where we take it a little bit easy and then we'll slowly reduce and get back into it. And we know from a training standpoint, the latter is what's gonna yield much greater results long term, right? You know, the people who can consistently do the good thing over and over again often win versus the person who does the right thing for short, intense bouts and has to have big breaks away. And so I think that really should be the way that we should be looking at things like holidays and breaks. You know, strategically looking at what your year calendar looks like. You know, when is work going to be more stressful? When is it going to be less stressful? And actually booking in these breaks ahead of time in a smart, intelligent manner to allow you to consistently show up and bring your best to whatever it is your best is in life, whether it's your training, whether it's your sport, whether it's your work, whether it's your relationships, whatever it is that's important to you. But by consistently giving you those small breaks throughout the year, it's going to allow you to show up 100% for things that are important to you, rather than doing what I did and was basically hanging on to a thread until the last moment when, okay, now you just got to take a break. And I don't think that's the best way to do it. Obviously life will get in the way. There'll be unforeseen circumstances. COVID was a great example of that. But generally speaking, it happens more foresight and planning these things and building it into your plan each year to conquer life would be a better way to do it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's going back to that, what we were talking about in the November podcast, where we kind of like treat your mental health, or kind of look at your mental health like you'd look at your physical health. And if we're talking about, like you say, the longevity side of things, you know, anyone that is well read on training knows that it's important to have those planned deloads for various reasons. And likewise, we're talking about all these things about why you should treat by getting to bed early, by limiting stresses outside, by eating good quality food, by getting nutrition in, by having meaningful relationships. It's going to impact your mental and physical health, just as making sure that you're planning rests within your training block, planning rests within your life, rather than waiting until you have a mental breakdown or you feel like you can't cope, you feel burnt out, your performance drops and you're forced to do it because there's no other way around it. Yeah, I think it's just look at it in more of a literal sense, and that in itself is going to allow you to have more longevity in your mental and physical health.
Yeah, and I think that doesn't mean that just because you have a break coming up in 3 months' time that you can just ignore your physical and mental health in the time because you know you have a break coming up. You know, again, going back to the training analogy, is that we self-regulate training. We talk about self-regulation all the time, which means if your body's not up for pushing today, take it easy, take the load down, take the intensity down, change the exercise to something that feels good. We need to be taking that same stance and applying it to our life. And that's where things like sleep routines, getting enough sleep, good nutritional habits, meditation, mindfulness, building good relationships, self-exploration, all those things are little things we need to be doing every day anyway to be allowing us to thrive ultimately. But then on top of that, having these small breaks are just, I think, an essential ingredient.
Yeah, and I think just to be the counter to that, obviously there are going to be days when you can't get to bed early. There, like you're not in a job where you are self-employed or you're your own boss, you have to turn up to work and you have to do these things that you don't want to do or that are going to cause you stress. But on the days when you have the opportunity, which is what I say to my recently on board a client who we're trying to, his one goal for the last 2 weeks has been to be in bed by 11 o'clock. He was going between 12 to 1 o'clock in the morning most nights. So I said, okay, let's go for 11 o'clock. And the days that you have those social events or the work events with dinners, don't worry about it. That's a day that you can't really control that easily. The days that you have the ability to control the controllables, control them. And that's what we're saying, like when you have the opportunity, build those routines where you can be in bed early, you can eat the right food, and then the days that you can't for whatever reason, that's fine. Like don't beat yourself up about it, but by having the structures and the routines in place previously, you're, in general, if you look at that long-term piece again, you're going to be better off.
Yeah, the more effective you control the controllables previously will allow you to not have that one slip up actually affect you in any way negatively.
Yeah, exactly. Good place to end, I think. Thanks so much, Ed. And thank you for listening, everyone.
Thanks, Paddy. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Nice meet.
Hey, mate. That was solid.
Oh, fuck. It was a dirty podcast.
How was a dirty podcast, mate?
Go do an intro now.
That's fine.
I'm nervous. Let's make a quick notes on what we're talking about.
Talked about taking breaks.
Talked about the importance of time off.
Maybe not even the importance of, it's like how to schedule time off.
We talked about taking time off.
Yeah.
Physical and mental benefits.
Yeah. Structuring your time off. Thought ideas around structuring your time off. How much time to take off?
When and for how long?
Yeah.
And other topics.
Let's go, buddy.
See you later.
Let's do that, love.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Live Perform Compete podcast. Ed and I sat down to talk about taking time off. Ed recently had 5 days off. We wanted to have a quick conversation about why he did that. We talked about physical and mental benefits, ideas around structuring time off, when and how long you should take breaks, and other topics as well. Hope you guys enjoy.
Loud it.
Loud it.
You got a client fight?
Yeah.
I'll pack away.
Yeah.
Oh shit, your thing's so cool. Oh fuck me, lad. I'm pretty tired now. Like, oh.
I can see it in your eyes. I can see it in your eyes. There is something. What is this? Episode 94.